Well, it's true. I mean, it's interesting. I keep saying that it's the genius of Netflix to say, let's do this. Because over the years, there's been many possibilities of doing something with Dark Crystal. Either it's going to be a sequel as a film, or prequels, or animations, and all that. But nobody really has said, let's just do it. And it's just somebody. That's all it needs. Is the yes. Let's go for it. And but meanwhile, I think is that it's been interesting when we did the Dark Crystal and Labyrinth, which we did using puppetry. We were expecting to do more, and it never happened. And meanwhile, technology has moved and shifted, and now it's very CGI orientated. But in the midst of all that, but still people feel there's something missing. What have we lost? And I think what we lost is what we're doing now is something that is immediate. There's an immediacy to the technique, because it has real textures and it's sort of grounded, and it is absolutely the right time to do it.
Audiences have come to that realization. They've come back from envisioning, CG and thinking it's wonderful, and are now wanting the real, the sort of tangible, the thing that they would look at and be able to touch, or to touch them in some way, and it becomes either more scary or it's more of a connection, and it's a greater source for people and viewing. For their viewing pleasure.
I think the intricacy of everything in this is something you could never achieve with CGI. This is just so rich in texture, in all ways. It's going to be very surprising for people, I think.
Yeah. I think the other thing which I've not really thought about, and I'm thinking about it now, is that whilst I've been designing for this, sometimes I'll do something and then somebody will say, "Oh, you can't do that because it looks like this from this film," and I go, well, I don't know, because I don't really look at film, especially fantasy films. I mean, I'm not that interested in. So the original film comes from other references. It comes from art and literature, and we didn't, and we also hired people originally not from the industry, but had other disciplines, and that showed up in the original film. So as we are continuing that look now, it's the same thing. Digital people refer to, it's self-referential. It refers to other films. It's really rare to see them break out of a different look, and this really is different in the way it feels and looks. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Absolutely.
What does the Dark Crystal entirety of the Dark Crystal as a legacy personally mean to all of you?
Well, I mean, it was such a pleasure to work with Jim Henson, and it was his vision to do it, and because against all the odds, nobody really understood what we were doing or why we were doing it, but he just wanted to push what he did in terms of puppetry further than it's ever been done before. He also had the vision to look elsewhere. He looked to me to design it, and I'd never done anything like it before. He looked like to Wendy, because you made figures, and he looked for the qualities in what people were doing that he wanted to feed that into his vision, and so. And that's why the original film was so extraordinary. And then so to continue that, now he's gone, for us to continue it is just an extraordinary
But it's
thing.
also influenced, I think, the rest of our creative careers for these 36 years, or however long it's been. We do refer back to those days, not only for the look of things, but also for the skills that we all learned on that film. It was amazing to be able to. We had 5 years to experiment, and we learned an incredible amount in that time. and kind of pass it on to you. You grew up with it.
For my part, I grew up with it. It's the land that I grew up in a weird way, because I came after that. I was born obviously on Labyrinth, but growing up in the house that in your house, in the house that you live in the countryside and on Dartmoor, it's just like the Dark Crystal. It's
just like Thra.
I mean, it's that sort of feeling. I grew up surrounded by sort of wonderful fairies and goblins and creatures, but also the skills and techniques and the objects that are sort of very reminiscent of this, or as a part of, like you say, of the process that you guys learned, and then you passed on to me, and I grew up loving that. And it was only when I went out into the world doing other things that I found out how sometimes boring that is, but how wonderful and rich this is. And so it feels very natural. So to be able to now to go into this world and actually build things and direct and figure out and sort of show people this is the field, this is how it should look, because this is normal to me, this is what it should feel like. So it's a wonderful pleasure to actually join and do that this time round, to really embark on how a wonderful textural world. The other thing is that we've spent years hearing the fans and talking to people who have said for generations now, and it is generations of people, how wonderful the film was, what it meant to them, that it got them into the industry, it started them in the industry, and please won't you do more. So finally we get to come back and go yes, and actually
and I think
some
we won't
of them are with
disappoint
us.
them. Yeah.
No, and I don't think they'll be disappointed at all.
We heard a little bit about new characters that we can look forward to seeing. I'm interested in when you've got this, established world that's so well loved at the Dark Crystal, and a new character. I mean, where do you even begin with that? How do you start to design? How do you figure out how they're going to fit into this world, this film?
Blame the writers.
Well, it's a challenge. I mean, it's been a challenge for you, but also for us to. Or the worry was, will they feel like the originals? Because we had to not reimagine, but recreate and rebuild the originals to some degree in some of the characters. So you've got that. You've got trying to replicate, or almost like archaeology, dig them up and bring them back to life in some form. But then you have new characters, and as you came in and started designing those, that was our.
Yes, I mean actually it was sort of, I could say it was easy only, but there was one time when I was designing and I thought, boy, these are really old scratchy drawings, but when I look back at my original designs for the film, I thought, oh no, these are old scratchy drawings. And it was a little while to get people up to speed when we were building to understand the language of my drawings, and they are very organic, and the idea is that the costumes and the creatures are very organic. So once people understood the language and the vocabulary of my designs, because what we like to do and what Jim really instigated is and we were very happy to work in a collaborative way, is to get everybody's input, but we have to keep guiding it towards where we think it should go. And so once people understood, they were all the builders are really creative, and they add their bits to it, and we just guide it along. So in the end, it was really, in a sense, easy to make it seamless. And yet, when we stand back from it, and when we see our new characters come onto set, there's always, we're just as astonished as everybody else. We sort of gasp. Yeah. I mean, I just sort of thanked some of the ladies were building this morning and said, when I saw the new Mystic come onto set, my heart sang. It was because it was so beautiful. And this is our triumph of we are continuing in this series, is to make people believe these things are alive. And you can just watch people on the edges of the set watching a Mystic move, and they're astonished.
Yeah.
and it's beautiful. Yeah.